Welcome to the Brains R Us podcast, brought to you by Centerpointe Research Institute. Each week, we explore the tools, insights, and breakthroughs that help you unlock your full potential, whether it's mind-expanding research, powerful personal development strategies, or transformative stories. You're in the right place to upgrade your brain and your life. Today's episode features author, visionary, and president of Learning Strategies, Pete Bissonette. Join MaryEllen and Pete as they explore the origins of learning strategies, the groundbreaking Paraliminal technology, and why joy is one of the most powerful forces in transformation. Along the way, Pete shares stories from his 40-plus years in the personal growth world, including his magical underground home, the famous frog Wrenth labyrinth, and the deep partnership between Learning Strategies and Centerpointe. This is a rich, joyful, and inspiring conversation you won't want to miss. Now here's your host, Centerpointe CEO, MaryEllen Tribby.
Well, welcome, Pete. How are you?
MaryEllen, I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Well, you are not only one of our first guests on Brains R Us, but you are the only person so far that I have ever been on a roller coaster with. So this is going to be fun.
Yes. Okay, that works for me. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's start from the beginning. Let's start with Learning Strategies because it's such a special company. It's extremely near and dear to all of us here at Centerpointe. So share with us how you got together with Learning Strategies.
Well, I was in my 20s. I was doing a lot of newspaper and magazine writing. And one day I'm driving in my car and I heard the last 15 seconds of a radio interview with Paul Sheely. Paul Sheely's the co-founder of Learning Strategies. And I was fascinated by what he said, but it's just that short period of time. So I called him up and I said, Paul, teach me some of this stuff and I'll write an article about you. Well, we got together. We played with it some, totally blew me away as far as what it was he was doing. Because he was talking about NLP and how you can tell how a person is thinking by watching their eye movements. Yeah. And so we got together, we just started to demonstrate it. And I ended up writing 4 articles, got him hundreds of new clients from the articles. And the next thing you know, I was hiring him for a couple projects and he was hiring me for a couple projects. And before you know it, I'm hauling my furniture up the elevator and joining Paul with Learning Strategies.
That is awesome because Paul is such an amazing guy and you two make an incredible team. So that's great. Now,
because what I really like, MaryEllen, is that when I was with him, he was teaching me how the mind works and how to get the mind to work in the ways that you want. So often we say we want to do this, we want to accomplish this, but we don't necessarily know how to do it. Paul knows how to guide the other than conscious mind in order to get the results that you want in your life. And it's not about reprogramming the other than conscious mind, but rather about learning new strategies for how to respond to what's going on in the world. And that's where the name of the company came from. So learning new strategies is Learning Strategies. So that's what we teach you in almost everything that we do are these strategies to make your life better by really getting your conscious mind out of the way and getting down into your inner mind, your non-conscious mind.
See, I love that you said that because we, people in general are always, somewhere in their subconscious, somewhere in their unconscious mind. And it's so important that people start realizing that they have power to use their mind, right? So, and you said this was when you were in your 20s. So after 40 years in transformational work, what lessons still amaze you?
First of all, you mentioned I was still in my 20s. So can I tell you another story?
Oh, sure.
And that one is, back when I was about 4 years old, Mom is doing dishes in the kitchen. And I walk in with my notebook. And my notebook was nothing more than a piece of cardboard folded in half, right? And I said, Mom, and she turned and looked at me and I said, Mom, when I finish college, and she just kept looking, I'm going to get a computer. And granted, this was in 1959. So computers, and even my mom's going, how did I know anything about colleges? And I said I was going to use computers to put on parades and carnivals. And then when I turned 30, I would start working with the human mind.
Oh, my goodness.
So I know. So I graduated from college, got an Apple II computer. It was serial number 14,000, which
Oh, my,
means it was one of the first ones. And I used it to put on professional wrestling, bicycle tournaments, tennis tournaments, all sorts of sports activities. So it's my parade and carnivals, the rodeo. And then when I turned 30, that's when I met Paul Shealy, and we got together with Learning Strategies 1, 2, 3, 4 months after I turned 30. So it was spot on, exactly what I told my mom when I was 4.
that is unbelievable. How does a 4-year-old understand what college is,
I know.
right? But it reminds me of this story since you were doing all your sports stuff, that when Derek Jeter was 8 years old, he said to his father, "When I grow up, I'm going to be the shortstop for the New York Yankees." And he said it every day to himself.
Yeah.
And so, and that's innate. Like that was totally innate in you at 4 years old.
But even more so, you know what one of my favorite games was?
What?
Playing publisher.
Oh,
And I got all my friends together in the living room. Mom would set up TV trays, and I had a little toy vault safe, with the combination lock on it. Mom would give us all magazines, and we would sit there with our magazine, and for 20 minutes to half an hour, we'd just circle dots. The dot on the I or a J or a period or the semicolon or anything like that. And because we figured, well, that's what publishers do. And because I always wanted to be a publisher when I was 4 years old, and I had no idea what publishers did other than circle dots. And then look at Learning Strategies. We're a publishing company.
yes. Yes, that is crazy because when my first job when I was 10 years old was delivering newspapers. So I would get up at dawn, still dark outside. My parents would let me go at 10 years old
Yeah.
with newspapers in my wagon. And that was my first circulation director job, I say, and that's the path I took. So, and it's funny because back then, the newspaper was your conduit to the world, right?
Yeah.
There were what, 3 TV stations and a newspaper. That's how you found out about everything going on. So that's wild. That's why we're such kindred spirits. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and speaking of, Learning Strategies was Centerpointe's very first joint venture partner. And for listeners who don't understand the term joint venture partner, basically it means that we love each other's content product so much that we send it to each other's community. So tell us a little bit about how you started with Centerpointe, how you guys kind of teamed up, because this was before my time.
Yeah. Well, see, how I learned about Centerpointe was twofold. One was every magazine we were advertising in, because back in those days, all you could do is advertise in magazines. It was like the New Age Journal, the Body, Mind, and Spirit, etc. And we would run our little ads, and Bill was running Centerpointe ads for Holosync. And oftentimes they're right next to each other. So I was always aware of it. But then our clients started to, when they were calling in and asking questions, they started talking about Holosync and Centerpointe and saying all these great things about the program. At the same time, I'm going through these marketing classes with Jay Abraham, who's a huge, and still is a huge powerhouse in marketing. And one of the things he kept saying is, you don't look at the competition as competition. You look at them as partners. Hey, we're all in this together. How do we expand our businesses? And he suggested joining forces with your competitors to share what you know with each other and to share recommend your customers to them if you like their program. And so then one day, it was either Bill called me or I called Bill. And I really don't know who it was, but we both were studying Jay Abraham at the time. And his clients were calling him, talking about the Paraliminals. So it was a natural extension. And one of us suggested, hey, we should be introducing ourselves to each other's client base. And we started doing it. It worked swimmingly well. And the next thing you know, we started to do it with more and more businesses. But it was really, Bill with Centerpointe and me with Learning Strategies that got all of that going.
That's so incredible. So you mentioned Paraliminal.
Yep.
So let's talk about that. What is it?
Okay, so Paraliminals, They're a little different. It's like what I was saying earlier about helping your mind learn new ways to responding to what's in the world, new strategies for responding better. And that's what the paraliminals do. So they're like closed-eye meditations, but you don't have to sit there and focus and concentrate. You can let your mind go. They're about 20 minutes, and you're not annoyed by a lot of the guided meditations that are out there, but rather you hear a voice in each ear going, speaking to different parts of the brain.
Yep.
And as a result, you cannot consciously follow along. And what that does, it allows you to let go of your conscious mind, and those voices will speak to your inner mind, your other than conscious mind. The voice in the right ear is generally bringing you through logical analytical processes for your left brain, like NLP, neuro-linguistic programming processes. The voice in the left ear is generally activating your creative right brain with metaphors and stories. So you're getting the whole brain involved with it. So it's a great, sweet way to train your brain to um, to learn new strategies, to be able to respond differently in the world, to get over the resistance and get over the obstacles and move closer to your goals. And it complements meditations perfectly, because there's so many of our clients now, they love to meditate, but there are times they'd rather not meditate. The paraliminal is a great alternative. And it's the same way too with a lot of our paraliminal users. They love to meditate. So great, you use a paraliminal now, then you do a meditation at some other times, so you get the best of both worlds working for you. And the titles for the paraliminals, they're everything for, such as Get Around to It for procrastination, the new history generator for changing your history, ideal weight, fresh start, Bill Harris. One of our most popular programs is the Fresh Start Paraliminal. And that's about getting a fresh start on life by living in the present moment, not in the past, not off in the future, but being in the present moment, which makes it so much easier to make the decisions to live your life without all that other stuff getting in your way.
That's so cool. So I think I know the answer, but what's your favorite paraliminal for somebody who's brand new to this? And it may it may depend on where they are in their life and their goals, but in general.
Yes. Okay. So when we created the first paraliminal, it was the new behavior generator.
Mhm.
So Paul, Sheila, and I, we sat down and said, okay, if we could only create one paraliminal, one recording that we could use every day for the rest of our lives, what would it be? And we came up with the new behavior generator. Because with that, you can model any individual and take on their behaviors. So you were talking about baseball. If you want to be a baseball player, as a matter of fact, one of our great success stories from the early days was this kid who called in, and he was upset because he got the new behavior generator. And I asked him what his goal was. He said to be a professional baseball player.
Mhm.
And he said it hasn't even started yet, so the tape doesn't work. This was back in the cassette tape days, right?
Right, right.
And so I said, well, okay, how good are you now? And he said, well, he hadn't even started, yet he was trying to go right to being a all-star baseball player. So I said, do this. Listen to the paraliminal one time for being in the batter's box and keeping your eye on the ball as it's coming to you from the pitcher. Another time for batting, another time for base running, another time for all the different things that you do with baseball. And he called back a couple weeks later, and he started his first game. And so what it is a great way to model somebody else's behavior and to take it on your own. And you do it on a deep subconscious level, the inner mind level. And the reason that's so important, because that way that little voice in the back of your head doesn't get in the way. So when he was doing the one for being an all-star baseball player, the voice in the back of your head was going, yeah, sure, I'll never be an all-star baseball player. I haven't even started yet. This allows you to step into it by breaking it down. I give him credit for doing the big picture first, and that's the way I always approach it. Start with the big stuff first, and if you don't see the results, then you chunk it down into little pieces. So that's one of my favorite paraliminals. Another one that's really good for people is the prosperity paraliminal, because that one at the beginning, most of the paraliminals begin with some questions, and Paul pauses, and then you answer the question. It asks you, what area of your life would you like to have more abundance? And you can say baseball or, whatever part of your life. What specifically would you like to have? You state what your goal is, what you want to bring into your life. The third question is the most important one. If you could have it now, would you welcome it? And if you have any resistance at all, and you have a little shuddering on that, stop the player and go back to the beginning, be clear on that's what you want, and listen to it and start the program again so that you can feel comfortable with what you're asking for. And then he brings you through this process in just 20 minutes with the voices in the both ears. And what happens is he's helping to turn on that antenna that that we all have inside of us to help attract to us whatever it is that we want to have coming in. And it also keeps the goal in our front and center inside our inner mind. And because we all know that if you stay focused on something, you achieve whatever it is you stay focused on, right?
Right.
And so
Right.
with life, it's so hard to be focused all the time because there's so many distractions. But the paraliminal, the prosperity, keeps your non-conscious mind, your inner mind, focused on that which you want, which is one of the reasons that paraliminal has been so successful for people.
That's so cool. When someone is using the paraliminals, do they put on headphones? Do they sit still? Do they close their eyes? What are they doing?
Yeah, so we absolutely recommend that you use headphones or earbuds because you get the voice in each ear speaking to different parts of the brain, and the voices will travel around your head, and you need earphones on it. Plus, it's embedded with Holosync. In order to get the benefit of Holosync, you want to have both earphones. You got to have earphones with it. If you don't have earphones or you just want to play, yes, you can do it. You can still get great benefit from it. But some of the benefits fall by the wayside when you don't use headphones.
Right. Right.
And you can do it sitting down. You can do it lying down. Really, anyway, you just don't want to do it while driving because it does send you off into another world. And it does ask you to close your eyes at some point.
Yeah.
So be in some place where you can close your eyes and relax.
And enjoy it
Yeah.
and take that time for you, right? I'm a big believer in non-multitasking, right? Like if you're going to do something, put yourself into it and be present there. That's fabulous. So that's one really cool story. I love that because it's baseball. But what other heartwarming or surprising stories have you heard from some customers about the paraliminals?
Well, there's a ton of heartwarming, a ton of surprising things because people have used it for everything and anything you can imagine. But what I love most about talking with clients is when they make these breakthroughs or when they have these transformations. Because when they're talking about it, you can hear them telling you the story. But when they start to tell the story about the success, their voice lightens up. They brighten up. You could tell that they truly love what has happened to them as a result of listening to the paraliminal. That's what motivates me. That's what keeps me working all the time and working to help people find the paraliminals and to use them and to get the best possible goals out of them.
That's great. How do you think the personal development industry has evolved over the years?
Well, I think the biggest thing is that, when Learning Strategies first started, there weren't a lot of programs that are available on cassette tape at the time.
Yeah.
And if they were, it was like Nightingale Conant, and they're great programs. I listen to a lot of Nightingale Conant because they're very motivational, but they're more car university where you can just sit in your car and listen to it. You don't have to do anything. When we started to create programs, we started to make sure they are experiential. So the paraliminals were experiential. When you take something like photo reading, we don't just tell you about photo reading. We actually teach you how to go through a book as fast as you can turn the pages, and you get to experience it as you're listening to the program. So I think that's the biggest shift is that we started doing that in the 80s and in the 90s, and now almost every program that's worth its salt has a strong experiential component to it. So people don't just learn about it and have to figure it out on their own. They're actually brought through the process to make it easier for them to transform. And in the old days, it was more transactional. It was more self-improvement. Now it's more transformative where everything is changing. And another thing, back in the old days, in the 80s, 90s, even the early 2000s, people tend to compartmentalize their life. So they had their professional life, they had their personal life, they had their spiritual life, right? Now they've all kind of come together where we're living whole lives, where our spiritual life and our work life are kind of together.
Yeah.
And people are more free to be able to talk about it with their friends and with their colleagues than they were before. And they're not like one person when they're working and another person when they're at home and another person when they're meditating. It's people are living themselves as a whole being. I think that's a huge shift.
I do too. They're living their best selves.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yes, because like you said, you are that person regardless of what you're doing. And I've always called it kind of this blended lifestyle, right? That it's not like this balance that's kind of a BS thing where you're competing. You just blend these areas together and that makes you. I love that. And I do want to say that the photo reading was the paraliminal I told Michaela to use during law school.
Yeah.
And she hates to admit when I'm right. This is my daughter, but man, she loved it going through law school and all the readings she had to do. So that was great for her. I'm telling you. And now she reads everything so quickly. It's crazy. So it's great. That's a good one. So where do you think we're going though in our industry? I mean, clearly we went from the transactional to the transformational. And so are we going to just keep getting better?
We're going to keep getting better. One of the things that happened in the late early 2000s was YouTube came along. That was like in 2005. And technology started to change so that it became easier for everybody to get their messages out there. As a result, a lot of teachers who didn't have a platform like Learning Strategies or Centerpointe, they couldn't get their material out in the world. All they could do is teach in their little communities.
Yeah.
And that was the extent of their sphere of influence. Technology has made it possible for more and more people to get out there and to spread their wings and to communicate and to work with so many more people than ever before. The challenge is that some of the programs that are out there, they're not all that good. Their heart is there, but the techniques that they're doing or the process that they're doing may have worked for them, but it doesn't work for a lot of other people. So I think that's one of the challenges. And so when clients will all the time, right, what do you think of this program or that program? And I said, try it out. And if it works for you, fantastic. If it doesn't, then move on to another one. But one of the things too that companies like Centerpointe and Learning Strategies has that a lot of the other companies don't have, it's the years and years, decades of wisdom that comes from working with thousands and thousands of clients individually and personally and in retreats and seminars and through the different programs, being able to get the feedback from them and keep evolving with it. That's something that is so good that a lot of the newer people, they simply don't have with that.
Right.
So I think that in the future, that yes, there's going to be more and more of that. What we have to do as the folks who are always striving to be our better selves is to find the resources that are the best ones that we can find. And it's going to be more challenging to do that because of everybody out there being able to have their place. But it also gives us the opportunity to find some absolutely amazing people and amazing processes because it's always evolving.
Yes. And I love what you said about technology because I know that we had a coaching cast last Friday and we had people on that coaching cast from Tokyo, from the Netherlands, from Spain. I mean, you can name every single state, but the number of countries that was represented was fantastic that we're able to reach everyone like this. And I think, it just goes to show that what we do, we're a global community and it's just going to keep getting better and better as far as technology goes. That keeps going. But as far as you're absolutely right, where we have the experience and, I know you and we do personalized coaching for our folks, so that we've got not just, how much they're improving, but also what they want and how they want to grow. And we can then help develop product around that, around their
Exactly.
challenges, around their needs. So I think that's something that Learning Strategies and Centerpointe really have an advantage right there.
Yeah, exactly. And so like one of the things that we did, we created an AI coach.
Wow.
And we've trained it on all of our programs. all of them. And it is only trained in our programs. It's not trained in the rest of the world, all the other programs that are out there. So if you're a fan of Learning Strategies, if you're using one of our programs, this way you can go and you can ask any question and it can answer it for you. It can give you a generic advice, it can give you a personal advice, it can keep asking a question so it becomes a great coach. And it can also recommend which other programs might serve the need that you have right now. And what I love about it is that earlier this week, I just went into and I was asking questions. Okay, of all the thousands and thousands of questions that have been coming into you, what is missing in the programs that we have at Learning Strategies? What programs should we be focusing on? And it gave me a whole list of ideas that we can be working on. And then I asked, where is the biggest gap that we have right now that we need to train you to better serve our clients? And it came back with a couple areas of suggestions. So we're working on training them on those things that it was suggesting. What that does is, once you start working with us, we're going to try to be there to nurture you and to hold you through the whole process. And there's always going to be something that's consistent. All of our programs are consistent with each other. They play off each other. They work with each other. You're not going to find this conflicting with that. That's the beauty of working with our AI coach and with our programs. And the cool thing with Centerpointe, everything we do is wholly consistent with what you're doing. I've been through so many of your programs, and Bill and I talk for hours and hours and hours. It's almost like it's like that. So I think that if you're a fan of Centerpointe, you're going to be a great fan of Learning Strategies. And if you're a fan of Learning Strategies, you're going to be a great fan of Centerpointe.
Absolutely. And I love the fact that we're always striving to do better. Because I remember, I'll never forget this, I read an article a zillion years ago, right when Amazon, started. And it said Jeff Bezos would literally come in every Monday morning with 10 things that he hated about the website, about at Amazon at the time. Yeah. And I mean, gosh, this was when did that start? Late 80s, right? Amazon?
Yeah, in the 90s, I think. Yeah.
Okay, early 90s. But that's what people who have vision do, right? They're striving to be better all the time. And that's why I think we are such great partners, because I like of just the work ethic and that how customer focused we are, or customer centric, that it's not like just customers. It is the family. It is Centerpointe family. It is Learning Strategies family. And I think that makes a big difference in general.
This episode of Brains R Us is brought to you by the Super Learning and Memory Suite, a powerful Holosync collection that gives you on-demand access to powerful super learning brainwave states that lets you learn up to 20 times faster and remember everything. Go to myholosync.com/brains26 to get started today.
And there's something else that it would have been, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I came across in one of my files a list of all the companies from the 1990s that were in our space, that were self-improvement transformation companies. And I'm going through them and I was bringing back all these memories because I knew almost everybody that was on the list. Yeah. But the far majority, I would say 80%, 90% of the companies were no longer in business. They were gone.
Wow.
And I was thinking to myself, well, why are we still around? And then it occurred to me that if you took a snapshot of our business in any 5-year period, from the beginning of the 5-year to the end of the 5-year, you can see how the business has changed, how it's adapted to the new technologies, how it's adapted to what people are looking for. And so we're here because we keep listening and we're not just doing the same thing over and over and over again. We're adapting to what's going on in the world and what's going on in your world.
Yeah. Yeah. So now, you brought up earlier about how lives are just more blended, how people are sharing more personal. And so I'm going to dig a little bit more into you personally, and you told us about kind of your manifesting at 4 years old. But another thing, as a child, you wanted to live in a cave. And so let's talk about that. And I don't want to be the one to go to bring up your incredible home. I want you to do that.
Okay. So first of all, yeah, as a kid, I either wanted to live in a cave or live in a school bus. And I figured when it came time to build my home, when I thought, yeah, I'm going to build a house, it was, I would build a cave because if I want to live in a school bus, maybe someday I'll get an RV and just travel around the country. That'll be my school bus, right?
Right.
But one thing that I haven't told very many people is, do you know why it was a cave in the first place? And I don't know if anybody's ever asked me. It was because of Aladdin's cave. All the treasures and the magic within. I wanted to be in a space that was magical like that.
Yeah.
So that I carried with me. And in the early 1970s, the University of Minnesota wrote a book on earth shelter technologies, what was working, why they're working, and all these different considerations. And I didn't come across that book till the early 1990s. And I read it how many billion times? And I said, I want to build a house like this. And so when it came time in the late 1990s, and I found that perfect piece of property,
Yeah.
I said, okay, this is my opportunity to build my cave, my earth shelter technology. So then I built this beautiful home. I think it's a beautiful home that's built into the side of the hill here in Minnesota. And the whole south side is about 90 feet of windows with it. So there's plenty of bright light. And the house is made out of these domes, like each section, 28 by 28 foot section of the house is a dome. And it kind of reflects the light back and forth. And that surprises people. As a matter of fact, when I was first building it, my first party that I had in the house right after it wasn't even complete, but it was, I could have a party in it. One of the neighbors came over and she walked in and looked around like this. She said, "Oh, I thought it would be so dark." I'm thinking, what? Man, first of all, it wasn't dark. It was bright and sunny.
Yes.
And that's one of the misconceptions or the thing that people have about an earth-sheltered home is that it's dark and dank inside. It's really not. And it's spacious because of the 14-foot ceilings with the domes and all of that kind of stuff. It's kind of cool. I love it.
It's actually, I've been there several times and it is magical. Like you definitely, it is magical. It's just a lovely, lovely place to be with incredible energy, like just incredible. So it is like,
It's well feng shuied.
oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
So you gave us a little bit with the hoo, but what other like wild reactions do people have when they come to your house?
One of them is sometimes people are afraid that the house will collapse because its open spaces are wide and there's 10 feet of dirt on top of the house. But the house is designed so you can run bulldozers on top of the house. You can park cars up there. So that's really the other biggest thing. When they ask how much does it cost you to heat your house in the wintertime? And I heat about 5,000 square feet. And I don't know about this year, but the year before last, it was somewhere around $500 to heat the house for the whole winter. And here in Minnesota, what? Most houses are paying $500 a month. So it's really, really energy efficient the way that it's built. And if you want to see more of it, the Minneapolis Daily Newspaper did an article on me and the house this fall. Just Google Bissonette Underground. So my last name and Underground, and the first article that probably comes up will be about it. So you can see pictures of it and you can see how it's actually made.
Yes. And it's not just that you have this incredible home, this beautiful home, but you have an incredible piece of property. And up top, there's something pretty special that I found. I just loved being up there. You want to tell the folks about that a little bit?
Are you talking about the rooftop patio?
No, I'm talking about the frogs.
Okay. The rooftop patios, since it's all underground, I have put on top of the house chairs and all that kind of stuff. So you can sit up there and look out over the expansive view. It's just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
And so that's up there. But up the hill behind that is the Wrenth. And the Wrenth is about a 10,000 square foot labyrinth. And the reason it's called a Wrenth is because it's populated by 880-pound stone frogs from Bali. And how I got the frogs, I was there in Bali. We were there, a half dozen of us or so, for a couple of weeks back in 2013. And walking onto the property, there was this, like a gauntlet of frogs. They were carved out of lava. And they're playing Balinese musical instruments. And they're fat and happy frogs, just so much fun. And you felt like they were singing and playing for you. And on the 8th day, I dreamt that they followed me home to Minnesota, took up residence in a labyrinth. And I'm going, whoa, a labyrinth. I've been thinking about doing a labyrinth, but I could never figure out where to put it or, what kind of labyrinth. Friends kept asking, when are you going to build your labyrinth? When are you going to build a labyrinth? Well, I had the dream and it showed me where to put the labyrinth. It was in a totally different area and it had the drawing of it and the design of it, which, MaryEllen, I don't know if you ever noticed it, but when you look at the labyrinth from up above, it looks like a frog, a sitting frog. If you look at it from a slightly different angle, it looks like a brain, a human brain. So it's really interesting how it came together. And so that morning I woke up and I told everybody about the dream of the frogs, and I sketched out what the labyrinth looked like. We started calling it the Frogrinth right away.
That's funny. That's
and
great.
then we hopped in the van. We drove around Bali to see if we could find cousin frogs that I could bring back home. And that wouldn't be unusual in Bali because it's a very artistic culture and there are thousands of stone carvers. And they make these statues that are 5, 6, 7, 8 feet tall, just magnificent things. Didn't find anything. Couple of days later, friends who live in Bali came over for dinner that night, and we told them about the Frogrinth and the frogs. And Renata said something that I can't not remember. I can't get out of my head. And that was, I know a stone carver. And so we took pictures of the frogs from every which way all around it, sent it to her stone carver friend. He came back with a bid to carve the stones and to ship them to Minnesota. And it was so inexpensively reasonable that I had no choice but to do it and to build the Frogrinth. And so now it's out there. This year, 2025, we're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the Frogrinth. And we use it for meditation walks, which of course that's what you do with labyrinths, and for cocktail crawls. So parties all the time, we just walk through it, and at the center of the Frogrinth, there's this big sitting area with chairs and all that kind of stuff, so we can sit and have a cocktail and just talk with friends.
Yeah, it is incredible. Tell everyone the difference between a labyrinth and a maze.
Well, in a maze, you can get lost going through a maze because there's all these dead ends and every which way. The labyrinth, there's only one way in and one way out, so you can't get lost.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about that is a great metaphor with the work that we do. It's about working with your inner self. And there's one way in. You never have to worry about it. You're always going to get to the center. When you want to leave, it's really easy to go back. So if you're in a state of meditation, it's really easy to get out of it. So it's just a beautiful metaphor for the work that we do. And that walk through the Frogrinth as you get to the center is just so peaceful and so calming that it brings you right into that state that we all want to be in.
Yes, and it is. And it's a beautiful setting. I just love it. And I love it with a cocktail in hand. So let's talk a little bit about the Transformational Leadership Council, since we're talking so much about transformation. How did this start? I know you've been there from the beginning. So talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so Jack Canfield, back in 2004, invited a few dozen people to his house, and a couple dozen people showed up because there wasn't a way for those in the training business, that's how it started off initially, to be able to get together, to shop, to talk, to share ideas, to, what is it that you're teaching that's working? What process do you use for this? There's no idea for trading and sharing, and also for supporting each other businesses. So we got together with the idea that we're going to see if we wanted to form a group and get together once or twice a year. And we ended up saying, yes, we want to do this. We want to get together twice a year. And at first, it was so cool because everybody wanted to learn from everybody. This way you didn't have to travel around the country to go through everybody's workshops. You could just do it right there because, the internet really wasn't doing a very good job of there was very few virtual trainings at the time. And our meetings, we would start in the meeting room at 8 in the morning, and oftentimes we'd go till 11, 12 o'clock at night, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was nonstop training and nonstop sharing. And then eventually that time started to changed quite a bit, especially as we got into the digital age where it's so easy to learn virtually, where we don't necessarily have to be teaching each other when we're there because there's different ways of doing it virtually. So now we start between 9 and 10 in the morning, and we're usually finished by lunchtime, and we might have an afternoon session or not. But otherwise, in the afternoon, we just have time to play with each other, to talk, to share ideas. If somebody has a challenge in the business, we kind of brainstorm to help each other. It's like a bunch of really close friends who are out trying to make a difference in the world. And it's the way that we can get together and to share the things that aren't working, which sometimes is difficult to share when there's clients around.
Right.
That here is a place where you can be vulnerable and can take your level of mastery to a different level. And I think that's one of the reasons, too, that Learning Strategies has been around for so long, is because of the learnings that we get from from TLC, Transformation Leadership Council. We keep taking what we're learning and applying it to our business. So that's cool. And MaryEllen, I'm so glad that you're now part of the group, too. So that's
Thank you.
really, really nice.
Me too, because of course, Bill was a member from the beginning with you.
He was in our first meeting at Jack's house. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is really it's a privilege that I am honored to take on. I love it. And we talked about evolving and technology. And was it now, are you 2 years in that you started your new app?
Yeah, we released it in spring of 2023.
Okay. And tell everybody about the app.
Okay, so the app is based primarily on the paraliminal learning technology that we talked about earlier. It's called Mind Tracks. MIND Tracks is TRX, so Mind Tracks. And we created it as an easy way for somebody to have in their hands the whole collection of paraliminals. Whenever they want, they can listen to it. They can get whatever value from it. So whether it's you need to deal with an issue that's happening, or you want to find you need a burst of creativity. We have the creativity supercharger, for example. They're right here for you all the time. Plus, we included in it all of our paraliminals that are our personal learning courses that are primarily paraliminal based. So you get a lot of other training that's with it. Plus, we provide the sleep tracks. So remember when I said that you'll hear a voice in each ear speaking different parts of your brain? We call that the sleep tracks because it kind of feels, there's that hypnagogic feeling to it, where it's like you're halfway between wakefulness and sleepfulness when all the voices are going around. And so we've set it up so that you can play just that part as you're sleeping at night. And it really brings you into an amazing experience for sleep learning. It's also good if you wake up in the middle of the night, you can't fall asleep. Put on the sleep tracks and you'll find yourself there in short order. The app also has a lot of our coaching sessions in it and our podcast, Paul Shealy's Mind Tracks. Now, what's really cool about that is that Paul has interviewed a whole lot of trainers and authors to ferret out what their best practices are, what it is that they teach, what are the steps that people can be bringing into their life. So he has a nice conversation with them. It brings out these great, valuable nuggets. Then he says goodbye to the guest, and then he keeps talking. And what he does, he says, okay, this is what the guest was suggesting, and this is how you do it with the paraliminals. This is how you're more effective if you bring this paraliminal into that. And he tells you which are the top paraliminals you should be using for that. So that's a great way to get support for how do you use the paraliminals and which one do you do? Because there's 70-some paraliminals, and we have them categorized by category, obviously, and in a lot of different ways. So it's really easy to find something to listen to. But my favorite is the paraliminal of the day. So every morning, if you want to go into the paraliminal, into Mind Tracks, listen to a paraliminal. If you have a goal you're working toward, if you have an issue you want to resolve, great. You just find a paraliminal that works for it. But there are times when you really don't know what you want to do, or you're just kind of open to anything. Choose the paraliminal of the day. And then your challenge is, how can I use this paraliminal for a goal that I have? And just listen to it and notice what happens during the next day. Each one's about 20 minutes long, so it doesn't take a whole lot of time. But that paraliminal of the day is a great way to use the app to find out, to get some value in your life.
Yes. And you know what? Everybody has 20 minutes, right? Whether you're waking up 20 minutes earlier or you're substituting watching a 30-minute comedy for a paraliminal. Like everybody's got that time, and what it does for your day and for your life is incredible. So I love that, and I have it on my phone, and I am probably the least technical person in the world. So when I can get through an app so easily and understand it the way I do Mind Tracks, that it is out there for all the tech neophytes that it is fantastic. So that kind of brings up, do you have a little something special for everyone listening today?
Yes. And that's actually Mind Tracks. So we're going to give everybody a subscription to Mind Tracks, a 14-day subscription to Mind Tracks. And this is what it looks like, by the way.
Yes.
So if you can see that, and you see at the top the paraliminal of the day, then there's, just trust us there. It's hard to do to do it backwards like that.
There you go.
Yeah, okay. And so what we're going to do is we're going to give you a 14-day subscription to Mind Tracks, and this is how it works. You just go to our website. It's mindtracks.com, mindtracks.com/MaryEllen. Right? Okay, mindtracks.com/MaryEllen, and just sign up there, put in your name and email address. You don't have to put a credit card in. This is not something where we will charge you for it after the 14 days. You know what that game is. We don't have that here. This is really easy. You go to the app stores, you get charged after the trial. And on the app stores, we give a 3-day trial. Here, we're giving you a 14-day subscription for it. Yeah. But here's the challenge that I'd like you to do. Go into it and listen to a paraliminal, maybe the paraliminal of the day, so that you have an idea. Do you like this? Is this something you want to go with? And just kind of go with the flow and the rhythm of the experience. And if you're saying, yeah, this would be interesting, then get out your notepad and just write for a couple minutes everything that's going on in your life right now. Where your successes are, where you're having some challenges, where your obstacles are, where you're seeing a lot of flow, things that you'd like to change, things that might be causing stress, and just write it all down into that onto the notepad. Put it in an envelope, seal the envelope, write your name on it, put it someplace where in 14 days you can look at it and read it again, right? Because I'm going to suggest that you listen to a paraliminal every day. The easy choice would be the paraliminal of the day. This way you don't even have to choose one. And this way, you're going to get a sampling of all the paraliminals. There's 70 of them. You're going to get 14 of them. And this way, when you listen to each one, at the beginning, it's going to ask you, most of them will ask you questions like we talked about with the prosperity paraliminal. Yes. And then answer the questions to your best of ability and be kind of thinking about what your big goal is or what it is that you want to be accomplishing. And then allow that experience to happen. When it's done, go on with the day and just keep coming back to it day after day for the 14 days. And then open up the envelope, read what you wrote, and notice how things have shifted. If you're deep in debt, you're probably not going to be out of debt in 14 days, right?
Right.
What will happen is that debt's not going to feel like an albatross around your neck. It'll feel like, okay, this is debt that I have, but it's not going to be wrecking my days. And that's one of the things that I love about transformational programs is it helps get you out of the garbage that so many people experience every day. And if you turn on the news, there's always something that you're going to find that you're not going to like. Doesn't matter whether you're a conservative or a liberal. Everybody always has something that triggers them. And the news does it continuously. This is going to help stop the triggers. Because if you're doing this on a regular basis, things just aren't going to bother you anymore because you realize how much better things are when you're in touch with your inner self.
Yeah.
And so mindtracks.com/MaryEllen. And then you got 14 days with it.
Wow, that is awesome. And, just for total transparency, Pete, you and I are really good friends. We talk outside of business. I've been to Pete's house numerous times. And whenever I speak to you, I'm just filled with incredible joy. Just incredible joy. And that's, kind of how I feel if I listen to a paraliminal, if I do a program from Centerpointe, it just brings me joy. So just to finish this up, why do you think joy is such a key ingredient in transformation?
Well, a couple things. One of them is if you can, no matter what's going on in your life, whether, you're deep in debt or if you're miserable or anything like that, if you have a goal, it's kind of hard to move toward the goal when you're feeling yucky.
Yeah.
But if you can find joy in any moment at any time, then it's so much easier to move toward your goals. It's so much easier to move away from that which you don't want. So just take a moment to touch into that inner joy, hold on to it, and that will help transform what's going on around you. And that's the same thing whether you're doing a Centerpointe meditation, you're doing a Paraliminal, they help bring joy into your life. And another thing that happens with joy is that more on the spiritual side of it, we always talk about you want to raise your vibration, you want to increase your frequency, and joy is one of the highest frequencies. And if you can raise your own frequency, if you can raise the energy of your own self, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your body, then everything around you frequency starts to rise. Everything else around you becomes better. And it's so much easier, like I was saying before, to have anything happen in your life. You can bring in that joy. The reason that works is that frequency just dissipates everything. See, if you're feeling hatred or anger or any of those kind of negative emotions, that you feel contracted. You can feel contracted inside of you. Well, that's the lower frequencies. When you bring in the higher frequencies, the lower frequencies cannot exist. It's not possible to be in joy and to feel anger because joy is the antidote to it. And so that's why joy is so important. That's why it's at the core of many programs. And if you can bring that joy into your life, that's when the magic happens.
Well, this has been magical. Thank you so much for this amazing conversation, for all of your wisdom, but mostly for your friendship to Centerpointe and to me personally. I honor you and I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Same here. You bring a lot of joy to my life, but also you bring so much joy to everybody else, to your clients. I still hear from clients about the success and the experience that they have from using Holosync. So this has been the 90s, 40 years. People have been telling us that, and they're still doing that. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Pete. Come back on Brains R Us. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Brains R Us, brought to you by Centerpointe Research Institute. Want to try out our proprietary Holosync brain-enhancing technology that's been changing lives for 35 years? Just visit myholosync.com/stream for a free 15-minute Holosync session and feel the difference for yourself today. Until next time, be kind to your mind.